my god, it's so weird having this on my head. My dad said I look like a daffodil, and everyone's calling me a sunshine, so I feel like I can be the sunshine that everyone can rely on right now. Anyway, I've been meaning to make this video for months, probably years now, and I think now is the best time more than ever to come forward with my favourite movies of, well, I say of, ever. Literally, these are movies that have brought me up. Like, some of these are going to be my childhood movies that I really loved, and obviously I'm going to be a bit biased about some of these because they are films that I loved as a kid, so maybe watching them for the first time now might not be as amazing as I'm making them out to be, so bear that in mind. But this isn't necessarily like aimed at everybody. Like, I'm not thinking about what a collective of people would want to watch. This is more like Ellie's list. These are the films that I think are great. I will give my reasons why. So I have a list. I have multiple lists of Ellie's favorite movies, and right now we are being asked to save each other's lives by sitting on our ass and watching movies. I mean, we're all technically superheroes right now. I'm gonna end with horror films because I know some people don't even want to discuss horror films. People hate horror movies, so I'm gonna leave them last, even though they are my favorite genre, just so that you can skip that part of the video when I get there. I'm gonna start with childhood movies. Now is the best time to whip out your old childhood movies, and I might remind you of some that you really liked. I'm gonna start off with probably one of my literal favorites. Mrs. Doubtfire. Honestly, this is one of the funniest films I've watched. Once again, I don't know whether it's bias, but it's hilarious. It's Robin Williams. I mean, he's dressed up as an old granny in order to fool his ex-wife, or his wife that he's currently going through a divorce with, into being her housekeeper. So she kicks him out of the house, and then he's like, well, what can I do to try and like wiggle my way back in? And so what he decides to do is dress up as an old lady. He turns up at the house and fools the whole family into thinking that he's an old lady and that he can look after the house and look after the kids. So it's his way of spending time with the kids again. I mean, just the storyline itself is hilarious. This film would have not gone as well as it did if it was someone else. Like, can you imagine that same storyline acted by someone else? Like, it just wouldn't go, it wouldn't do as well, I think, personally.
And then I've got to do what I've got to do. God, it's hot in here.
So my next massive childhood movie favourite, I thought I actually had, but it must be at my parents' house, is the wonderful Goodnight, Mr. Tom. I still think this one is like a timeless classic. The reason why I like this film so much is because it's focused on like a different kind of love to like the typical, you know, rom-coms and stuff that I like collecting, because I do like rom-coms. This is a lovely relationship between an old bloke, an old man, and this lad who turns up at his door because he's an evacuee. It's kind of like, it's a funny sort of relationship because he starts off, he's not a miserable man, but he's the very like typical old guy who likes his own space. Like, he has this kind of like tough exterior, and then like inside he's all soft and kind of gooey, and that's like the relationship that kind of unfolds as the film goes on. Like, he warms to the kid eventually, and you just kind of watch them in more ways than one relate to one another, even though they come from completely different backgrounds and they're different ages. You know, he's in no way related to this lad, yet he shows him more love than people in his own family have.
There's Runabout.
Will?
Only I think Willie sounds silly, don't you?
We were just off out, actually.
Can I come? That'll do better.
Matilda. I don't have the DVD for this. I probably have a VHS of it at my parents' house. I watched it so much as a kid. It was on all the time in my house, and once again, it's one of those films where actions speak louder than words. Like, Matilda has proven that love is found in places that you wouldn't necessarily expect to find love in, more so than your own home, unfortunately. Like, she finds love in school, and her teacher, who she sees as more as a mother figure than her own mother, and it's just this really nice journey of watching this girl figure out her worth in a world where she is constantly being bashed down by her parents, and she has these magical powers as well, which to me kind of don't represent her actually having magical powers. To me, I just feel like it shows her kind of like uniqueness and how she stands out as a individual in the middle of her kind of messy, crazy upbringing.
Hi, Dad.
Get in the car, Melinda.
Matilda!
Whatever.
Another childhood one, also a very silly one, probably very biased, this one I will admit, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. If you want a film right now that is just so weird and silly and stupid but fun, you can sing along, even if you haven't heard the songs before, you can pop the lyrics up and just sing, then this is the film for you. They have a movie of this stage performance, if that makes sense. Like they've made a movie out of it like they did with Cats. I mean, that's a bad example. A lot of people, I feel like, see the title and think it's going to be some like really religious musical and it's going to be dead serious. It's literally not. It's so fun. Some of the songs in that movie are my favorite songs of all time. If you forgot this film existed, it's a great film to put on again after years of not watching it, because all of the songs come back again and you're just there like, yeah. Joseph is like the star child, like the kid that is the favorite, and all the brothers get very jealous, particularly when Joseph's dad decides to give him a multicolored coat. And the reason why it's called Dreamcoat is because Joseph has this magic power of being able to tell the future by hearing people's dreams. The power he has to tell people's future by defining their dreams gets him out of sticky situations.
Oh, poor Joseph, what you gonna do? Things look bad for you. Hey, what you gonna do?
Next up is James and the Giant Peach. Once again, the songs are really good, and I think films with songs in, for me, is like a massive thing. I love musical films. I like plots that are kind of like odd and strange. Like basically, a giant peach grows in someone's garden. A kid who lives with his aunts, who aren't very nice people, decides to eat into the peach, crawls into the peach, and suddenly the film changes from live action to animation, and he realizes there's big insects who can talk inside the peach, and he becomes friends with them and travels the world with them. It is as weird as I'm explaining it. I actually dressed up as the spider from James and the Giant Peach last Halloween. If any of you saw my video on that, you're probably like, what, she lost the plot? But that was who I was supposed to be.
It's the peach! We're going to New York City!
New York!
It's another musical film. Ghost. Ghost. Ooh! This is probably my favourite Whoopi Goldberg character ever. Molly, you in danger, girl. I just think it's sad. I won't lie, it is quite a sad film, so if you want to put this on, then prepare to cry, maybe. It's like warming but also sad. It's very weird, like you don't know whether to laugh or cry, and the stage production always makes me cry. Even though it's a bit cheesy and cliche, I personally believe that we do still watch over loved ones when we pass away, and I envision a lot of the stuff happening in this film happening in the afterlife. Like I get that same feeling when you're like walking somewhere, you're not even thinking about a relative or something, and all of a sudden you can kind of like feel them there, and that happens a lot in Ghost. A woman loses her husband, and then the husband, as a ghost, finds out he was actually murdered, so he has to try and get through a psychic to talk to his wife and tell her she's in danger, girl, and needs to do something about it quickly. It's a bit like detective-y and thriller, but also like silly and rom-com all mixed into one. And the psychic part in this, she's a bit of a nutter because she was supposed to be a fake psychic. She's like conning loads of people, and then she actually hears a real ghost, so it freaks her out as a psychic.
Molly, you're in danger.
Now, you can't just blurt it out like that. I'll just tell her in my own way. Molly, you in danger, girl.
My last childhood film is actually still going to be a musical film, and it is Grease 2. For those of you who don't know, there is a Grease 2, and in my personal humble opinion, I think it kicks Grease 1's ass. I've been wanting to make a video about this for a while. I just think there's so much to say about it. It's basically Grease 1 but on its head. So instead of a girl chasing after the guy, it's the guy chasing after the girl. What I prefer about Grease 2, not only is the guy in it my like biggest celebrity crush, I love him so much, especially when he's all like British and nerdy. Sorry, I need a moment. Grease 2 doesn't focus so much on changing the identity in the sense of it working at the end. He thinks that's going to work, but then the girl that he's trying to win over, like, proves throughout the film time and time again that that's not the be all end all, that's not everything. She's a bit of a rebel, you know, like Danny in Grease 1, he's like, you know, I can't be with you unless you're a pink lady. Whereas in Grease 2, the girl he's trying to win over, she actually doesn't like the clique culture, and she actually doesn't like the fact she's got these rules, and she has a mind of her freaking own, and I think she's badass and cool, and them as a couple. I've been wanting to do a movie digestion? I've been wanting to do a movie dissecting of that film on my YouTube channel for a while. If people are interested in that, let me know. I'm a bit worried about doing it because I think it's too niche. Then again, I did the K-12 film and that was very niche.
I'm trying to ride that motorcycle without bloody well killing myself.
Speaking of K-12, K-12 is on my list. Very biased, I'm aware. If you're not a fan of Melanie Martinez, the artist, then K-12 might not be for you, but what I like about Melanie is she has my kind of aesthetics that I like. I kind of like that cross between playful, fruity, young, silly, and like fun with like dark tones and themes and elements of my, like I like some rock, but fair enough, a lot of it is like pop punk, so it's like happy rock. It's like light rock, and then I love my pop and my silly musicals, so I feel like it's not really what K-12 is about, but it kind of is at the same time, because Melanie likes that weird twisted nature infused with pastel goth, so she combines the two together really nicely. Like, she's the director, she wrote all the songs, she helped make the props, she helped make the costume, and she directed the makeup, and she did the script, and she was in a strict budget. She had to chop off like 2 hours of the movie, so it's quite a low budget film, and it's available for free on YouTube. It's basically about a school, and the school represents society and the world and life as we know it, and you basically see that through the different themes. Like, she'll have a song called Show and Tell, which obviously reminds you of school, just hearing those words, but it's actually about how the entertainment industry put artists, and not even that, but anyone who they make money from, they put them on a pedestal, wind them up like a freaking mechanical toy, and get them just to play and make their money on stage, and keep on keeping on going until they're basically like run dry. And she's also infused that into the film's plot. That woman never ceases to amaze me. I don't know where she gets the creative drive. Probably marijuana.
I'ma take a bow so you can kiss my ass.
Bucket List. This is such a lovely film. I have a crush on Jack Nicholson. Makes you think of what you value in life. It's another love wins situation. Morgan Freeman in this is very like miserable, and he's like fed up. I mean, he basically, both of these guys are on death's door, right? And they share a hospital room together. And Jack Nicholson is looking at Morgan Freeman like, come on then, let's write a bucket list. Let's do last. Come on then, let's write a bucket list. Let's do all this fun stuff. And Morgan's a bit like, as you can tell, I quite like films with miserable old men in. I don't know, I find them rather charming. He kind of pulls Morgan out of his shell. It does remind me a lot of the relationship I have with my best friend, and I kind of like those dynamics for some reason. And it's really lovely because then you get to watch them do all the things that they want to do before they kick the bucket. It sounds quite morbid, but it's also very lovely because I think it's so important to always make sure that we're taking a step out of our regular daily routine and our, you know, daily grind, which at the moment we're having to do. We're all staying indoors, we're thinking lots about the things that we want to do once we are outdoors again. So I think now's a really good time to write a list about some stuff that we want to do. The bucket list can be anything. Like, some of the stuff on their lists that they wrote in the film is like change someone's life, to help someone out, to kiss the most beautiful girl they've ever seen, and oh my god, when he crosses it off the list, it's just giving me goosebumps thinking about it. It's such a lovely moment of the film.
There's no way I can repay you for all you've done for me.
Soppy as heck, and you're all probably sick of this film because it gets replayed every Christmas, but Love Actually, once again, I love my films about love. Love wins. You can't get a more suitable film for the term love wins, because I actually started writing a video essay for Love Actually when I started doing Vlogmas. I was gonna do a movie kind of dissecting of this film, and then I got ill right before, the couple of days before Christmas. I started getting really ill and run down, so I stopped doing it. Then I went home for Christmas and left the freaking book under the coffee table. Idiot. What I love about this movie is how it demonstrates that love is not just romantic and the kind of surface level stuff. You can find love in work, you can find love in just your family, like son to father. There's love in lust, I guess, like there's love that's kind of a bit more kind of casual, I suppose, but then tough. Like there's a story in this that covers husband and wife love, where they have to choose love every morning they wake up. Like marriage isn't just about, you know, feeling in love all the time. It's choosing it when you've got a family to bring up and work to do and everything's crazy and busy and stressful. Tempting love, like there's love that is literally surface level as well. Like there's a guy who has a woman in his office that he's always like flirts with and is very tempted by, even though he's got like the love of his life at home. There's languageless love. There's a guy who's in love with someone who speaks a language he cannot speak. It's such a good film. I mean, all of it's funny. It's a hilarious film. It's not to be taken seriously. It's not like on The Notebook level, or it's not like P.S. I Love You level. It's more like silly and fun and lighthearted. Speaking of, P.S. I Love You is on my list, but his Irish accent in this film just soothes my soul. Sometimes I need to watch it just to top up on my soul soothing. But it's a really lovely film where basically this woman loses her husband and finds out that he has written her a love letter. I don't know how often it is, but every so often. No, not written, sorry. Is it? Oh my god, I'm watching so long I can't remember what it was. Sorry, yeah, there are love letters delivered one per month to gently guide Holly into her new life, each finishing with P.S. I Love You. The reason why I thought it wasn't a letter is because you hear his voice, but obviously it's just reading it out. So it's very like, because I feel like hearing someone's voice who's passed away, like even like for me, when I've stumbled across videos of like relatives I don't have anymore, you hear them talk and it's just like, it's like more touching than it is like seeing their face for some reason. It's very personal. Anyway, it's like a very interesting thing that not a lot of people talk about when it comes to losing a loved one. Like moving on from a situation like that in terms of like dating again and finding someone new, choosing to get married again is very like, it's a touchy topic, and it's something that not a lot of people like talking about because they don't want to have to, a lot of people don't want to do that for years and years and don't want to have to admit that ever even consider doing something like that. So I think P.S. I Love You captures that really, really well. And when you love someone so much, you want them to be happy. Like that's all you want. It also shows the stages of grief really well. I watched this film a few times during losing people close to me, and you have to realize that there's like times where you'll feel good, and then there's time where you'll sabotage yourself a little bit more, and things will be erratic again, and then things will feel great again.
Hey baby, surprise! I know this probably feels a little bit morbid, but...
Next up is the film La La Land. Once again, it is a musical. I'm sorry I didn't realize how many musicals I put in this, but it does have similar feelings to The Bucket List in a weird way, even though it's nothing like The Bucket List. But the reason why I say that is because it makes you think about values again. Every time I watch this, I always think the same things, and it's always like how much it makes you assess what you find more important in life, like the direction you go in and where things take you and the choices that you have to make in life. That it's a bit like sliding doors, you know, like they meet each other in the middle of trying to find their career and their dreams. It's a dog-eat-dog world, particularly in a place like Hollywood, and I think it shows that really well, how like even something as like strong as their love for each other doesn't get in their way. And it's like kind of a devastating film to watch because you watch how they basically choose money, and fame and fortune and career changes them both as people, so they support each other through that. And I think it always makes me think as well how you have certain people in your life that you need for certain reasons. A lot of people don't necessarily believe in one soulmate, they believe in like one person that they need at that point in time, and then you kind of like go elsewhere, like your pathway changes and stuff. And I think that just displays that really well. But people see this film very differently. A lot of people hate this film because they feel like it's pointless and stuff, but I feel like if you can't dissect it immediately when you first watch it, then it is kind of hard to see why it did so well, if that makes sense. Like this is a film you kind of got to think about and think over. It feels like a musical when you watch it. Like a lot of musical films, they take that musical aspect out of it, but they continue it in this. Like the way it's shot, the way the scenes change, they change each scene in this movie like they do at a stage production. I think I just like any film that makes you think, what if? And honestly, this makes me cry every time. If you were to ask me what film makes you cry the most, Ellie, I would say La La Land. I'm gonna add Mean Girls to the list. It's silly, it's fun, it's lighthearted, it's something you can put on in the background. It's basically you following the day-to-day life of high school. It's just a girl who moves from Africa. She has to try and get through high school on her own. She's new there, and she has to try and work out her own way of doing it, really, because she's so new to everything. She kind of gets sucked into that whole like cliquey nature once again. I like films that they either kind of analyze that cliquey nature or they try and burst their way out of it. So she struggles with that quite a lot, and then finally she realizes her true self. There's no point describing that because I feel like most of you have probably seen Mean Girls.
But if you do touch each other, you will get chlamydia and die.
Another movie that you're very likely to have seen already is Frozen 1 and 2. I'm not going to describe this too much because duh, like why haven't you seen it? It's basically someone who has icy powers. She basically like can create ice with her hands, but that makes her a danger to society, so she runs away basically to lock herself away to protect her loved ones and her family, which is what we're doing now, right? She has a sister that tries to find her and help her, but the reason why I like 1 and 2 is because of this guy. And when the second one came out, I was worried they'd ruin him, but he's just as funny in the second one, if not funnier.
Oh, woo!
Head rush!
So cute. He's like a little baby unicorn.
This is really odd, but I don't think I have the Toy Story DVD in this house. I think it's at my parents' house. Like, where's my Toy Story DVDs gone? Anyway, I've got some bonus DVD. A lot of people ask me why I have such an obsession with it. I mainly like it because of Woody. I won't lie. What frustrates me is how all the toys always go against Woody in every single damn film. He, like, proves himself every single film. Yet every single time the toys never believe him or think he's doing something wrong or they go against him. Everything he does in every film, like, I can relate to and I can understand. He gives me so many like Taurus/Cancer energies. Even though there's a whole trilogy now, most of the Toy Story movies are basically just the toys trying to do what they do best, which is provide an outlet and a source of entertainment for their owner, for their kid owner. And the first 3, I think, is basically the same thing, where at one point in the film they feel kind of like they're not doing their job as a toy and they feel let down as a toy, and they have to basically like win the love back of their owner. And weirdly, if you look at all the trilogies together in a weird way, like the story that how far the toys have come collectively together, it reminds me of like the journey of getting over someone and heartbreak and how to process that and get over that and understand that. And I think that's why I love Woody's story so much, because he's gone through the most and you feel like you kind of connect with what he's saying and understand it. At one point in your life you will have felt the way that Woody felt in a number of the different films, and the fact he stays dedicated and eventually he's come to a point where he's realized that he has to come to terms with Andy not needing him anymore, and him continuing on and helping all the kids out there as a more independent person who doesn't rely on an individual.
Thanks, guys.
Next up, Jurassic World. Jurassic Park, but being kind of flipped on its head in terms of a Jurassic World, which is a theme park that was created where guests could experience the thrill of witnessing actual dinosaurs. Now, if I remember right, I did prefer the first one to the second one. If dinosaurs were still around, still existing, you can kind of imagine this happening, right? There's a theme park that kids can go to, people can go to, just to see these dinosaurs that they keep and breed in this park. You know, budget will go down when the fascination isn't as exciting anymore, and what they try and do is hype it up a bit by making their own dinosaur behind the scenes. They decide to genetically modify a dinosaur with savage capabilities. They basically try and make the most exciting dinosaur behind the scenes so people get really hyped about it and excited about it. But as you can imagine, it all goes wrong. I love films to do with dinosaurs.
You just went and made a new dinosaur? Probably not a good idea.
A very similar feeling kind of film, whoa, is Planet of the Apes. I love both Dawn and Rise. I think Dawn's my favorite. No, Rise is my favorite. It's basically following the story of a scientist on the verge of a medical breakthrough, begins testing on a young chimpanzee called Caesar. He actually brings him home and develops like quite a good relationship with him. But then the chimp starts behaving like human. It kind of has like intelligence that they weren't expecting, and it turns into an epic battle to determine the dominant species on the planet. So it's literally like apes versus humans. It's really interesting to watch because once again, it's a what if scenario. Like you can imagine it happening. It's very kind of believable. When it's too far-fetched and silly and almost cringy, like a lot of DC movies cringe me out because like they're so like far from true that I will almost watch them like a bit like uncomfortable. I don't know.
Caesar love humans more than apes.
My next movie that I don't have the DVD for is actually Parent Trap, but the original. I probably should have added this into my childhood movies, but this is such a good film because of mainly the fact that they had to cast one girl to play two characters. Back in the day, that was a lot harder to do, and you can kind of sometimes see the line in between the two of them where the special editing effects weren't as good back then. I like seeing how they made it happen then when it was a lot harder to impose stuff like that on screen. Basically, Parent Trap is two kids that find out about each other during summer camp. They find out that a girl looks very similar to her, and then they figure out that actually they are stepsisters. So they decide to switch lives when going back home after summer camp in hopes to like bring their parents back together again. Wait, that would mean that they were sisters, not stepsisters, right? You know, ideas weren't as lazy and didn't depend on the people in the video editing suite.
It's amazing.
The Lego Movie. The Lego Movie is probably one of the, if not the funniest films I've ever watched. Like the humor in that film was just so on point and so good. Definitely up my alley. That's the kind of like humor I like, and it's very silly and quick, and also it takes that kind of like niche audience, I think, that maybe wouldn't have usually picked a movie like that to watch. The Lego Movie is something that I thought that only people who like were into Lego would be interested in, you know, but it's not. Like it has an audience of like so many different types of people, but while still keeping it child friendly, if that makes any sense. Punchy as well. There's constantly something going on.
Morning apartment, good morning doorway, morning wall, morning ceiling, good morning floor. Ready to start the day.
Speaking of humor, I'm going to say Jim Carrey. I was just going to list a whole load of his films that I really wanted to add to the list, but I just feel like any movie that he is in wins my heart. All of the Jim Carrey movies are entering my movie list. He's my favourite actor of all time. He's probably my favourite celebrity of all time. I really, really enjoy his humour. He's very quick. I like that kind of bish bash bosh humour where it's like hitting you unexpectedly and then it goes into the next thing. Jim Carrey's a lot like Marmite though. You either love him or hate him.
I'd like to ask you a few questions.
Now let's move on to finally horror. Starting off with my favourite, you've probably guessed, It. I'm going to say like the original. I've got the OG here. This is really good. I won't say like, oh, the original is better than the remake or the remake's better than the original. Like they're good in their own ways. I don't want to say one's better than the other. My love did blossom when I saw the remake, I won't lie. It is described as 7 young friends unite against a terrifying supernatural creature that has been haunting their small town for centuries. Calling itself Pennywise the Dancing Clown, it is a monster of unspeakable power that takes the form of everyone's most horrific fears. So each kid is threatened by their worst nightmare. The only way these kids can survive it is together. And I thought that, I mean, once again, I say this in the video, linked down there, but if you were threatened by Pennywise, it would be in the form of what scares you the most in life. And I think that's such a cool concept. The clown feeds on their fear, so he's trying to get them as scared as possible, which is why he can like transform into their biggest fears, such as one of them, it's her father because she's had a terrible upbringing. I made a whole video on why I like it so much, so I'll link that down there so I won't waffle too much about that. I just find Pennywise a very kind of lovable villain, and that's a bit of an odd thing to say considering he eats children, but it's more so like I love horror because I'm fascinated by how the people behind the scenes like construct that character and make him come to life and choose the way he stands and talks and his characteristics and his like catchphrases. Also, we recently framed and hung up the little It poster that we had been gifted by a lovely YouTuber called Spoilers123. Go watch her, she's really lovely. She's been supporting this channel for years.
Billy boy.
Obviously, I'm not gonna skip Insidious. Insidious is definitely on my list. I've got 1, 2, and 3 here. Don't yet have 4, but 4 was very, very good. Insidious, the first one's my favorite. Maybe then I liked 3, and then it's 2, and then it's 4. I don't know. Either way, I really like Insidious. Mainly the first one is what stole my heart because of how it was filmed. Like, it's more eerie than jumpy. That's what I prefer in my horrors. When you kind of feel like unsettled and a little bit like paralyzed when you're watching, because it's like, it's not making you jump out of your skin and it's not blood and gore, but it's more just like uncomfortable to watch. Like, that's the kind of horror I like. And then so I was worried about going into the next few films, and I assumed that it wasn't going to be like as exciting anymore and I wasn't going to be as kind of engrossed. But then scenes such as when she falls out of bed in, I think it was the 3rd one, and that monster creature thing comes into her bedroom and you just see the feet because she's like paralyzed on the floor and she's just looking and waiting for the monster to come closer. That was one of the best like horror movie scenes I've ever seen. It was so tense. The sound usage in the Insidious franchise I love. Like, it's dramatic. Like, instruments and the soundtracks they use are very kind of loud in your face. The first Insidious does start off in the typical new house scene where someone moves in to a new house to seek a fresh start. However, their son Dalton mysteriously falls into a coma and paranormal events start occurring in the house. Speaking of uncomfortable and eerie, I will have to say Hereditary. Hereditary obviously didn't come out too long ago. I wasn't expecting to come out of the cinema and discover my new favourite film, but it blew my mind. Like, once again, I underestimated it, and it wasn't because it was like slash horror. It wasn't gory, it wasn't thriller, it wasn't like jumpy. It just made me feel tense the whole way through, and it also uses methods that I don't really see a lot in horror that I think that a lot of horrors should involve, such as daytime scares. You never really see scary stuff happening in horror films in the daytime, and I don't know why horror movies don't do that, because I feel like people would get more fear out of seeing scary things happen in movies in the day, because then when they're going about their daily lives after watching the horror film, it's going to make them more uncomfortable because you kind of feel like you have that safety in the daytime. But when you watch Hereditary, you don't feel like you have that anymore, because creepy stuff happens to the kids when they're at school in the middle of some like happy scene. And there's also one of my all-time favorite movie scenes in Hereditary. I won't give any spoilers, but I will say it involves a brother and a sister in a car, and the reason why I like that scene so much is it's so accurate in the way that it displays how someone will react to a situation that happens to him. Not a nice situation, it's actually unimaginable, but I felt the pain with him and I felt the struggle with him, and I could really empathize with what he was going through. And he did such like a natural human response to something happening when he just froze to the situation and didn't turn back to look at what happened. He just continued, and I just think that's one of the most powerful movie scenes I've ever seen. In fact, some of these movies I wouldn't necessarily maybe recommend absolutely everybody to watch, like I said at the beginning of this video, but Hereditary is a film that I feel like everybody should watch who likes horror. I was just so impressed with it that I feel like everyone who loves horror should definitely give it a chance. I'm finding it really hard to describe Hereditary without giving lots of stuff away, so I'm literally just going to go from what Google says. It literally just says here, a family haunted by a mysterious presence after the death of their secretive grandmother. That's literally all it says.
Oh my god, what's that?
Now, if you want a big old binge on a load of movies, then the Saw trilogy is for you right now. Directed by my favourite horror movie director, who is the same guy who did Insidious. His name's James Wan. I love him. Sure, I close my eyes at the like gross blood bits, which I can't handle. It just makes me feel so uncomfortable. But the storyline, the plot, the twists, like, it leaves you so like invested with every film that finishes, so you probably will binge through the Saw trilogy quite quickly. They do such a good job in making you feel like you're on top of what's happening, and then they push another twist in there. So it's described as a doctor finds himself chained to a pipe in a dingy bathroom with another man in the same situation across the room. The men are the latest victims of the Jigsaw Killer, a maniac who uses elaborate traps to test his victims' dedication to life. Given 6 hours, a hacksaw and a bullet, Doctor tries to figure out a way to freedom, hoping his kidnapped family can survive the nightmare as well. So like I said, I'm not usually into kind of serial killer movies, but it's the way it's, this is going to sound very odd, but so intelligently done, and he chooses his victims for certain reasons, and also it's cool to see how they figure out the way out, and you kind of go through that process with them, trying to work out how they get out, and then you have to work out why they're there, and also the reason why they're there is to prove how much they want to live. Like, that's the whole point of them being stuck in the room. And I do like movies where it's sort of like studying human behavior, like Big Brother on steroids.
Those who don't appreciate life do not deserve life.
And the last movie, but not least, is The Uninvited. Sorry about that big sticker there, I should probably take that off. This I will just mention because of a wonderful twist at the end. Following the suspicious death of their mother, sisters Anna and Alex become entangled in a deadly battle of wills when their father becomes engaged to Rachel, their mother's former caretaker. As the two sisters investigate Rachel's questionable past, they are confronted with ghostly visions, terrifying nightmares, and deadly consequences, all leading to an ending so shocking it will send chills down your spine. So yeah, I won't lie, the twist probably kind of makes it on my list. That's the reason why it's on the list. There isn't anything that's like dramatically different in terms of like, you know, the rest of the film. Like, it's not shot in any way that's worth mentioning. So there we have it. That's my list. Those are my movies that, if you want to, you can watch them all. And by the end of quarantine, you'll be like, wow, I'm basically Ellie right now. Because honestly, putting all those movies on will summon me up into your living room. So thank you very much for watching. I'm going to go now because this video was very, very long. So join me on social media such as Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. I also stream live on YouNow. I'm on Patreon. I do tarot readings if you want to book one. Use my email down there. I'm going to love you and leave you. Loads of love from my house to yours. And stay safe. Keep inside. And I will see you for my